My name is Zach. I am a representative from the undergraduate admissions office with the University of Rochester. I am joined today by some colleagues of mine at the Hajim School of Engineering, also at the University of Rochester, and we are here to talk to you a little bit about what it's like to be an undergraduate engineering student at Rochester, provide you with some overviews of what things are like, and my colleague Alvin is going to kind of go through the step-by-step agenda for this evening. Before I turn it over to him, I do quickly want to discuss a couple of functions. I know with the way the world's been for the last few months or so that many of you are quite familiar with Zoom by now, but just in case you are not, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see both a Q&A and a chat function. We have turned off the chat function for our purposes this evening, so you may see us put some links or other information in there for you. But on your end, if you would like to utilize the Q&A box, that'll be your best way to have questions answered. So I'll be in the background answering questions. My colleague Anna will be in the background answering questions. And we are more than happy to tackle anything you are curious about when it comes to the University of Rochester as a whole, or specifically to engineering throughout Alvin's presentation. Again, please utilize the Q&A box, and I will be joining you again shortly to discuss some admissions related engineering items. But for now, I'll turn it over to Alvin.
Great, thanks so much, Zach. As Zach mentioned, my name is Alvin Lamibel. I'm the Assistant Director for Undergraduate Studies in the Hajim School of Engineering and Applied Sciences at the University of Rochester. And I'm joined tonight by one of my colleagues, Anna Alden, who's an academic advisor in the Hajim School. So just a little bit of our agenda for this afternoon. I'll talk a little bit about what engineering is. I know that it's not necessarily taught at all schools across the country and the world. So I'll talk a little bit about that just so that we're all on the same page. I'll talk a little bit about how to study engineering at Rochester. And I know that you're probably looking at other schools, so some of the things that set us apart from other schools that you might be looking at. At that point, I'll turn it over to Zach to talk about the GEAR program, which is a really exciting admissions opportunity that we have at the U of R, and then talk a little bit about applying more generally to the university. So I want to start again with what it is engineering, just so that we all kind of are using the same basic definition. This one comes from the National Academy of Engineering. It says engineering is the creation of technical solutions in the interest of humanity and society. So this definition has three main components. The first is creation, which really tells us that engineering is about making, inventing, or problem solving. The second is technical solutions, which is to distinguish engineering outputs from those of art or journalism, which is also creation. And then finally, there's in the interest of humanity and society. Engineers do what we do so that we can make the world a better place for others to live. There's another more elegant or romantic definition that I really like from the Japanese film director, animator Hayao Miyazaki, who says, engineers turn dreams into reality. I really like that. Some of you might be wondering how this compares to fields like biology or chemistry, geology, or physics. Those are natural sciences, and in general, the subjects are interested in describing and understanding the world around us. And then finally, engineers and computer scientists do not work alone. They work with others in teams. So some context about what we at the university think makes a good engineer or computer scientist. You must have good critical thinking skills, be able to be creative or create new ideas or be innovative, have good ethics and integrity, and display good leadership skills. So next I'm going to provide some more context about some of the questions and problems that engineers like to look at. And I do that through the lens of the NAE Grand Challenges. The Grand Challenges for Engineering were announced in 2008 by the National Academy of Engineering as the big goals that would improve life in the 21st century. So since 2017, the University of Rochester has been one of about 50 schools across the country and globe that are partnering with the NIE with the goal of graduating students who are able to address some of the most complex, interdisciplinary, and interconnected problems that society faces. And these challenges fall under four main themes, making the world more sustainable, healthy, secure, and joyful. And I like showing the grand challenges because they are interdisciplinary problems with a lot of pathways to solving them. For example, the Mars Curiosity rover would fall under engineering the tools for scientific discovery. In order to create the Curiosity rover and get it to Mars, the project team needed mechanical systems, including what is needed to launch it from Earth, fly it to Mars, have it enter Mars's atmosphere, descend, and then land on the surface, and then whatever is needed for mechanical and chemical analysis on the surface of Mars. It also needs electrical components and systems, such as sensors, to support all of those mechanical systems. There are optical requirements, including cameras and other lenses, and then computer scientists to help with a lot of the code that kind of undergirds all of that. However, for this project to be a success, the project also needed geologists, meteorologists, accountants, marketing and communications personnel, politicians, and lobbyists. So this is one example of how different kinds of people from a variety of industries are needed just to achieve one goal. And while we like to think of the engineering approaches into these 14 problems, there is definitely a need for folks from the natural sciences, social sciences, and even the arts and humanities to advance our understanding in these areas. This goes back to my saying that the University of Rochester's premise is that engineers or computer scientists must have good critical thinking skills, creative abilities, ethics and integrity, and leadership skills in order to be successful. So as we move on from this slide, I hope I've given you a cursory understanding of what engineering is and some of the problems and challenges that require an engineering mindset. So I'm going to walk through the degrees that we offer at the University of Rochester and a little bit of information about each one. Audio and music engineering combines studies in engineering and applied sciences with music and audio production to give students a technically rigorous education in the field of audio, music, and sonic engineering. This includes audio content production, acoustics, signal processing hardware and software, electronics, and software engineering. Biomedical engineering involves the application of engineering science and technology to solve problems in biology and medicine, including advanced research, engineering practice in industry, or in clinical settings. And one of the big points of pride that biomedical engineering is really proud of, and I'm proud of it too, is that the biomedical engineering undergraduate population at this point is 50% women. I think their faculty is either really close to that or over 50%, but that's something that they've had their eyes on for a while. Chemical engineers apply the fields of chemistry and physics to solve problems in industries such as biotechnology, advanced materials, energy, pharmaceutical or chemical manufacturing or refinery, and microelectronics processing. Our computer science department is well known for its strengths in computer vision and robotics, the interaction between humans and computers, natural language understanding and knowledge representation, machine learning, systems and architecture, and data analytics. Many of the faculty have dual appointments in other departments, such as brain and cognitive sciences, linguistics, philosophy, or electrical and computer engineering. Electrical and computer engineering deals with circuits, electromagnetics, microelectronics, signals and communication, computer architecture, and digital systems. Graduates of that program contribute to fields including health, energy, manufacturing, national security, information management, and even entertainment. Geomechanics is offered jointly by the Department of Earth and Environmental Studies and Mechanical Engineering. And it's for students who are interested in the application of the field of mechanics to problems associated with the atmosphere, rivers, lakes, and bodies of water, and the solid earth. This can lead students to professional fields including hydrology, meteorology, geothermal expansion, and marine geology. Mechanical engineering is a versatile discipline, and our program is well known for work in energy, especially high energy density physics, material properties, biomechanics, fluid and solid mechanics, and precision manufacturing, or machining and optics manufacturing. Optics and optical engineering are special programs to us because we house one of the most esteemed centers for teaching and research in this field all over the globe. Optics deals with the generation, manipulation, and application of light and is very important to areas including fiber optic communication, laser surgery, digital cameras, handheld displays like your smartphone or tablet, virtual reality, and energy efficient lighting. In addition to being one of the only schools in the country that offers an optics undergraduate program, Our optics faculty are among the highest within the university to create startups based on technologies that they create or research. Engineering science is our multidisciplinary major that emphasizes understanding, application, and context of the fields of engineering, science, and math. The engineering science major is designed for students who are really interested in the role that engineering has in service to humanity and society. Historically, students have been able to focus on areas such as engineering ethics, engineering in the business world, and renewable energy. And then finally, the interdepartmental engineering major is our option for the build your own major. It allows students to develop their own course of study that's not readily available through an existing major or a combination of existing majors and minors. Some recent graduates have studied robotics, which studies digital electronics, material science, robot control, and artificial intelligence. Biomolecular engineering, which is at the intersection of chemical engineering, biochemistry, cell biology, and biomaterials. And nanoscale biological engineering, which looks at immunology, optics, and nanoscale instruments and materials. Some of our programs are accredited by ABET. ABET is an international board that offers accreditation to individual academic programs in engineering, computing, technology, and applied sciences. Accreditation by ABET is assurance that alumni of that undergraduate program meet the quality standards in that profession as outlined by practitioners and professional societies in that field. It sets students on a great path to becoming practicing licensed engineers. I do want to take a step back at this point and talk about the Rochester curriculum. When we ask students, the curriculum is one of the main reasons why they choose to attend the University of Rochester. A fundamental premise of the Rochester curriculum is that it is flexible and interest-driven. That means that you will make many choices as you formulate your academic plans and decide on the subjects that you wish to explore. Unlike other schools, we have no required subject areas outside of writing. Each student must fulfill the college's introductory writing requirement. Next, each student must decide on at least one major, and generally that decision is formalized at the end of your sophomore year. Put another way, even though you may know now what you wish to major in, your major will not become official until you formally submit paperwork and discuss your plans with your academic department. The major will fall into one of three big divisions or buckets of intellectual study, but we still want you to study something in the other two. So what we did at the college is come up with what's called a cluster. A cluster is a set of pre-approved courses that give focused study to a particular subject. Whereas a major is usually 10 to 16 courses, a cluster is only 3. Students must complete up to 1 cluster in each division where their major does not fall. So for example, a student could choose to major in American Sign Language and complete the divisional requirements with clusters in anthropology and biomedical engineering. At this point, I will pause and see if there are any questions about what engineering is, the degrees offered within the Hajim School, and the Rochester curriculum.
So Alvin, we do have one question sitting out here right now, and this student is interested in which of our majors might be usually associated with environmental science. They said, the question is worded, what major is usually associated with environmental engineering in the minor, but I guess maybe some crossover there between environmental science and engineering.
Yeah, so environmental studies is actually a major that is offered at the University of Rochester, but not through the Hajim School. So it falls more under the natural sciences as opposed to engineering. I do believe environmental engineering is a minor that's offered by our chemical engineering department. And so my sense is that folks who are interested in that field would be studying chemical engineering. And there are probably electives within that major that would allow you to study more about that area if that's what you're interested in doing.
Awesome. And we have one other question as well that I think would be helpful for everyone that's in attendance to hear. The student asked, do engineering majors also declare at the end of their sophomore year or earlier?
Yeah, they absolutely do do it at the end of their sophomore year. I'll talk a little bit about this more in the presentation, but when you apply to the University of Rochester, whether you're interested in an engineering field or something else, it's just one application. We do find that there are a number of students who, their school doesn't offer film and media studies as courses in that. So they'll take one course just because they're looking for something to add to their calendar, and they realize, hey, this is something that, you know, I've never seen before, but I'm super interested in this. I'm going to switch my intended major, and that's what I'm going to go with. So as I said, it's a very flexible curriculum. We do try to give a lot of support for students, especially students who might be undecided when they are doing their application, or for students who are thinking about engineering, because it can require a lot of the introductory math and physics and chemistry courses. But we really do encourage students to, because of the available subjects available at the University of Rochester, we really encourage students to think outside, you know, their traditional, whatever the traditional courses that might be available at the high school level.
Great, I think that's what we have so far. Guys, again, please keep the questions coming in the Q&A box, and we'll be happy to answer them, but I think we're good to move forward. Yeah.
So that question is actually a really great segue into what I'm going to get to next. Thinking about the list of grand challenges, or some of the departments and programs I have listed here under arts and humanities and the social sciences. Maybe you have an interest in those as well as something in engineering, and you're not really sure how to balance, you know, how am I really going to be able to study this? Maybe it might be, you know, a major in American Sign Language and a major in computer science might be too much. So what we do offer are a number of minors, at least one in each department. And so I think I said earlier that a major is usually between like 10 and 16 courses. A minor is usually something in the 5 to 8 range. So it is actually fairly common for students who have one major in one of the engineering majors to find space for a minor in another engineering major. One of the popular ones is students who have a major in biomedical engineering, being able to find a minor in chemical engineering if they're interested in cell and tissue engineering, or a minor in optics if they're interested in the mechanics, the biomechanics of the eye. That's a really popular one. We do offer 22 clusters. So we do think that technical exposure and experience is important for all students, regardless of you know, how you end up leaving the university. So we in the past few years have come up with clusters that are really targeted towards those students who are going to have their majors in either the arts and humanities or the social sciences. And so these are some of the ones that are kind of interdisciplinary. They live in the Hajim School, but they might have pieces that live in some of the other disciplines as well. So for example, engineering and technology and antiquity. That's actually one of our popular clusters that can have a study abroad component. We've had a field school in Ghana over the past few years. And so students actually travel to Ghana and learn about the engineering, historical, and cultural aspects of a dozen coastal forts there. So that's a really interdisciplinary one, looking at, again, history as well as engineering and architecture. Green energy management could be for students who are interested in the intersection of business or marketing with sustainable energy, but really with that technical lens. And then finally, if you know, if after the end of this webinar, you think, you know, hey, maybe an engineering major is not right for me. I'm not really all that interested in a minor or a cluster in engineering. We do have introductory courses that are available to all students. Those courses are in engineering, product design, fabrication, and computer science. And for the most part, none of them have prerequisites, and they're open to all students at the university. Okay, so now I want to pivot and talk about the university more generally and some of the things that might make us stand out against some of the other schools that you might be looking at. So Hajim is integrated with the School of Arts and Sciences, and students share classes, student activities, residential buildings, and services. So as I mentioned earlier, you're admitted to the college if you end up applying to the university and end up being accepted and matriculated. It's one campus where, you know, you're sharing all of the same services as students who are in the arts and sciences. Your English classes are going to be for students who are interested in English. You know, they're not classes that are designed for engineers who need to get a humanities requirement. If you end up joining student activities like student government, you might be with students who aspire to be politicians or lawyers. The college allows for a small school feel within a large university. The university is the largest employer in the region, attributed mostly to our healthcare enterprise. All in all, between Hajim and Arts and Sciences, we're about 5,500 students, which does allow for students to really have that small school feel that folks are looking for. On our campus, I said that the Hajim School and Arts and Sciences are on the same campus. It's actually co-located with the main libraries on campus, as well as our University Center for Entrepreneurship, the Graduate School of Education and Human Development, and our business school. So students are actually able to, I mean, throughout the university, you have access to all of the great offerings that we have, but physically on our campus is the education school and the business school. So students take advantage of those offerings. Across the street, we do have the medical center, as I talked about, and a lot of students will get involved in research in a lot of the basic science labs, as well as maybe they're doing clinical research in some of the patient settings. A little bit further down the street is our laboratory for laser energetics, which I believe holds the second largest laser to be associated with an academic facility. And then downtown Rochester is a city of about a little less than 200,000 population. And right downtown, it's a short drive away to our School of Music, which is a music conservatory that's housed within the University of Rochester. And as well, a little bit down the street from the School of Music is the Memorial Art Gallery. So there's an art gallery that's part of the university. I think it's a great way for students to explore the downtown city as well. We care a lot about your success in the first year. So this is going to talk, I'm going to touch a little bit on some of the things that I talked about before. So we know college is an adjustment, and it's likely going to be difficult for most students regardless of your major. That being said, we know that engineering has a particular reputation for being difficult, but if you tell us that you want to study it, we have an abundance of offices and resources to help you succeed. Specifically, we have a tiered advising model, which includes one advisor who will stay with you for all 4 years and help you navigate your overall success, well-being, and college opportunities and resources. And then specifically for our engineering and applied sciences students, you're assigned a faculty advisor and additional staff advisor from the department will help you navigate questions as small scale as individual courses, all the way up to career prospects in that field. We also have advisors dedicated to certain populations that might need different kinds of support, such as veterans or first-generation students. During your first year, we also have various checkup points to make sure that you're adjusting academically. We call this midterm grading or interim grading. Many of the larger classes have support from the college's Center for Learning as well, and that might include one-on-one tutoring or group sessions. And then the last thing I want to mention under this point is that there are specific curricular initiatives available to students in that first year. One of which I want to mention is a 1-credit course that's taught by the Career Center that's really focused on helping students decide what they want to do with their life and their career. We like really telling it for students who might be undecided on a major period, or if they're deciding between 2 majors, or that kind of situation. So that's a course where students are given a lot of experiential activities and readings and self-reflections and discussion to really help them think about what are the opportunities available at the University of Rochester, what are my personal long-term goals, and how can I kind of get from there to here, from here to there. Rochester puts a premium on your learning outside the classroom too. One of the great things about the University of Rochester in the college is that both academics and student life feed up to the Dean of Art Sciences and Engineering. This is not a usual model. At some other schools, you might get academics that really kind of go up the chain of command in one way, and student life kind of goes in a different silo, and they don't really meet until you get up to that senior vice president level. We really try to have it so that at the same administrative level, we're helping students look at the residential experience of being at the University of Rochester and have that complement their studies as well. Many of the college advisors, so I talked about how there's a tiered advising model. The first advisor that you're with, the college advisor, we're really connected to other offices in student life and other outside the classroom opportunities. So one of our advisors works really closely with our student support network, which is called the CARE network. I work fairly closely with our Office of Student Activities. One of our college advisors works in the Office of Minority Student Affairs. One of them works in the Career Center. So we're really all over the place trying to make sure that you're getting support. Our office also takes pride in pre-professional societies, affinity organizations, and design groups that can help you find community and explore engineering outside the classroom as well. And then a note about career development as well. We think that that's really important. I mentioned the 1-credit course for undecided students. The Career Center and our writing program actually put together a course on helping students develop their professional identity. So that's everything from what does a professional email look like to how do I put together a resume? How do I create a professional online presence? All that's kind of covered for students to really help them get in a good place before they graduate from the university. We also pride ourselves on helping students with their career development with access to internships. So we have students who work for large companies such as Amazon or Boeing or Pfizer, as well as startups, with just 1 or 2 students that might be, or 1 or 2 employees that perhaps it's a spin out of some research that some faculty have been doing in one of our academic departments. We also have summer internship funding available for students if they identify a gap between their cost of living and any money that they'll be making. We know that it can be difficult for some students to be able to find internships in New York City, for example, has a very high cost of living. And then I do want to mention the grand challenges one more time. We talked about what the challenges were on one of the very first slides. And I do want to mention that we also have what's called the Grand Challenges Scholars Program. So because we're a partner school, over the course of your 4 years at the University of Rochester, you can actually enroll in this Scholars Program and complete that in addition to your degree. And the way that that works is you choose a challenge. So one of the really popular ones at our university is providing access to clean water. And then you complete 5 experiences around that challenge: a research experience, an experience that's interdisciplinary, something related to entrepreneurship or innovation, something that's related to global interest, and then finally something related to service learning, all related to providing access to clean water. And then what happens after you complete all of those things is you're actually recognized by the university as well as the National Academy of Engineering as completing the Grand Challenges Scholars Program. Okay, so I know that engineering and computer science, I said this already, that there's a reputation that it's difficult and perhaps, it's the only thing you can do and there's no space for anything else that you do other than your one engineering major. I kind of want to dispel some of those myths. So we have no expectation or requirement that you have an engineering or applied sciences background before coming to the University of Rochester. Most students do not take an engineering or computer science course in high school before coming to the U of R, nor do they necessarily bring in AP or IB credit or other kinds of advanced credit or placement before coming to the U of R. And then some statistics related to involvement on campus. 90% of students are involved in a student organization, club, or varsity sport, which might be from one of the over 250 performance groups, music ensembles like a cappella, cultural groups, fraternities and sororities, intramurals, competition groups like debate, community engagement organizations or religious organizations on campus. 80% of our students participate in research, and then 23% of our students participate in a traditional study abroad, usually a semester or a summer, or other sort of global experience, so short-term, maybe 2 to 4 week experience. Specifically for this year, our study abroad office has done a lot of work in creating virtual experiences for students who are not able to travel to other countries. And then this kind of came up with a previous question, but sometimes there's the misperception that the major you write down on your application really follows you all the way until you graduate. And even if you change your mind halfway through, you're stuck with that one major. That's not the case at the University of Rochester. I think it's really great. We do find that about 25% of their first year students end up changing their intended major in the first year. And then upon graduation, we find out that about 35% of students in the Hajim School graduate with an additional major or minor. One of the things that's really helpful with that major change in that first year is that because you're taking a lot of similar chemistry, math, physics, and that introductory writing course, those fit within a lot of the majors that you might be interested in taking in that first year. Okay. This is my last slide before turning it back over to Zach to talk more about one of the great opportunities to applying to Rochester, the GEAR program. So before I get to this slide, I do want to just encourage you one more time, if you have any questions about any of the content that I've covered, to put those in, and we can get to those questions after I'm done talking about this. So speaking of questions, this is this slide comes out of one of the questions that we get frequently from parents, but as well from students, is what happens to students after you graduate. So I have snapshot data from a survey that the Career Center did 6 months after the class of 2019 graduated, so November, December of last year. You can see on the left-hand side of the slide that about 60% of students, 60% of survey respondents reported finding employment. About 35% go on for further education, which can include a master's or doctoral degrees. And I don't have the specific breakdown here, but it does include students who end up going to medical school or business school or law school or getting a master's in public health. These are all common outcomes for students. Law school, you might be wondering, where the connection is there. Or not a lot, but some of the students who end up going to law school are really interested in patent law. So they take the technical background that they get as a result of the engineering degree, and they're able to apply that into a law field. So that's one way that students are able to find success. And then finally, a small proportion of alumni are either still looking or no longer looking. The other thing I want to do with this slide is mention that after graduating, you stay part of the University of Rochester community. There are over 100,000 living alumni across the country and the world. We have an incredibly robust alumni relations office and career development, a career center that you'll want to stay in touch with after you graduate. They host a number of regional events, which can be a mix of fun events as well as learning events. And in the past year, they've also launched affinity-based networks for Black alumni, for first-generation alumni, and for women alumni. Melior Weekend is our combined parents' weekend, homecoming, and reunion weekend, all rolled up into one. And then finally, there are perks, discounts, and other kinds of services that are available to you. One example is the career development tool called the Melior Collective that is open to you from the day that you become a student for the rest of your life. It's an online platform for alumni, students, and other folks in the University of Rochester community to help folks foster their professional exploration and changes. Okay, at this point, I'll pause one more time and see if there are any questions to be answered. Looks like we're all set, Zach, so I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Alvin. So I'm returning here again. My name is Zach. If you joined us a few minutes late, I am the admissions representative from our Office of Undergraduate Admissions here with the University of Rochester. I want to thank Alvin for the presentation there on the great overview of what it's like to be an engineering student, specifically at Rochester. I'm going to talk to you here over the next few minutes about a program that we offer, specifically aimed at engineering students, and then talk a little bit more broadly about the application process as a whole, because as Alvin mentioned, you do not apply specifically to an engineering major. At the University of Rochester, you apply to the university as a whole, and then you make that determination by working with your advisor and submitting the proper paperwork and things like that when you're a current student. So those will be the two main things I touch on. Please, again, utilize the Q&A function with any questions you may have so that we can feel free to answer them for you over the remaining time that we have left together. So this slide is dealing with our combined degree program known as GEAR, Graduate Engineering at Rochester. GEAR, on the next slide, I'm going to go over some of the perks of why GEAR is an excellent program, especially if you're interested in the engineering field. But first, I'll talk to you a little bit about the process that we take in the admissions office in order to admit students into the program. So if you are a prospective student who is currently a senior, and that means that over the next few weeks and months, you'll be filling out your college applications and being prepared to enter a college in the fall of 2021, then you can sort of follow along step by step here with how these deadlines work. So there is no separate application for gear. You will apply using either your common or coalition application. There's simply a spot to note your interest in gear. And then that, if you do so, that will pre-populate other questions, as well as an opportunity to write a little blurb about your interests in engineering and what you hope to do with those interests. So you can apply through the application as normal, but you'll need to do so by December 1st. We cut off gear applications for prospective first-year students on December 1, and then we use much of the month of December to review those applications. So in our admissions office, I, as the project manager for gear, will take the lead on this, but I usually will recruit a few of my admissions colleagues to help me navigate through the hundreds of applications that we get to gear in a given cycle. Our job is to cycle through your academic achievements, typically in the math and science fields, as well as your extracurricular activities, typically related to things like engineering, robotics, and others. Once we filter through that, and believe me, there'll be plenty of eyes looking at the application at those times, we will eventually begin notifying students whether they are finalists or non-finalists. So you'll receive a communication letting you know that your decision has been rendered. If you are a finalist, you're going to receive information about our program, which I'll touch on in just a minute. If you're notified as a non-finalist, you will still be given the opportunity to opt in. In other words, you'll be given a link. You can click on that link and you can still make your application be a part of the regular admissions process, even if you're not selected for gear. For those students that are selected as finalists, we typically have a program every February. That program is meant to introduce our gear finalists to current students, to faculty, to staff members. In a typical year, students will come to campus. They get to sit in on open classes. We hold a fair where they can go around and talk to the various engineering departments. It really is a great opportunity to get introduced to Rochester in a little bit more personal of a way than you typically are able to. This year, it appears as if at this point, that program will be going virtual in February. You can keep an eye on our website, which I'll show you the link for in just a second. But you can keep an eye on our website for updates. If you're selected as a finalist, it'll likely be a virtual program, but we still anticipate being able to give you all of those same opportunities, give you a chance to talk to current students and faculty, and so on and so forth. The last part of that program is an interview, where you'll sit down and interview with a person like myself from our admissions office, as well as a faculty or staff member from Hajim. I do my best to try and place you with a faculty member that is related to some of your interests. So if you tell me you are interested in mechanical engineering, I do my best to place you in an interview with a faculty member from mechanical engineering. You'll go through that interview process, which again this year is likely to be virtual. And then shortly thereafter, students are noted in the early spring whether or not they have been admitted to gear or not. Something we started introducing last year that we plan on continuing this year, if you're notified as a finalist, you'll also be given your admissions notification at that point as well. And we try to get you financial aid information right around the same time. So all of that is stuff to keep in mind. And that's sort of the chronological process. Again, it starts with a deadline of December 1st, and students that make it all the way to the end and are admitted typically find out in the early spring. So that's a little bit of the timeline and the chronology that goes along with applying to gear. Here's a little bit more information about why gear is unique and a great opportunity for students interested in engineering. So I guess first and foremost, you know, if you are to get an undergraduate and eventually a graduate degree, which is what gear provides, you typically would go to a university for 4 years, get your undergraduate degree. Maybe in your senior year, you'll start applying to graduate school. Maybe you're scheduling the GRE as an entrance exam to graduate school. And you go through all that stress while you're still a senior as an undergraduate, just to hope to get admitted. Typically, you could take about 2 years in graduate school as well. And when it's all said and done, you'll have your bachelor's and your master's degree. If you're admitted to gear, we sort of streamline and accelerate that process. So students that are admitted as a first-year student are given guaranteed admission to the graduate school with Hajim. So assuming you meet certain GPA requirements and class requirements along the way, all of that stress that I just mentioned is taken away. You no longer need to worry about taking the GRE, as you can see on the second bullet point here. You'll be exempt from qualifying exams, but you also no longer need to worry about applying during your senior year and finding a graduate school that will admit you. As long as you meet the requirements, you'll know way ahead of time that you're going to get your degree at Rochester. It's a streamlined process. Typically in about 5 years, students are able to be finished with both their undergraduate and graduate degrees. Next, I'll focus a little bit on sort of the monetary advantages of GEAR. There is, as you can see, about up to a 50% tuition award for that 5th year of study. But you can also combine that with the fact that if you do pursue a typical undergraduate and graduate experience, as I mentioned earlier, that's 6 years worth of paying for tuition and books and things of that nature. Obviously with the accelerated timeline, finishing in 5 years, but also having up to that 50% tuition award in that 5th year, you could be saving yourself quite a bit of money to get both the undergraduate and graduate degree. Some other perks of GEAR, there's focused advising by GEAR mentors. I think Alva did a great job earlier explaining to you our advising model with the University of Rochester. But I think it's important to note that if you're admitted into GEAR, you'll have GEAR mentors advising you along the way from day one, helping you complete the class requirements, plan your schedule so you can finish on time in this accelerated timeline, as well as helping introduce you to various other opportunities. Some of the opportunities that exist that you could be introduced to include extensive research opportunities, both within Hajim and around elsewhere. Alvin mentioned internship opportunities earlier and sort of the robust experience of a student outside of the classroom, and then other professional development opportunities as well. Rochester as a whole is committed not only to the academic side of the student, but the student outside of the classroom, and GEAR advising can provide you with some of those opportunities early on. Lastly, access to premier research facilities, both during your undergraduate and graduate years. And Alvin touched on a few of those facilities earlier on as well. If you are curious about GEAR, if this piques your interest, you can certainly go to the website that's on this slide. I would encourage you to take a screenshot or a picture. But enrollment.rochester.edu/combined degree programs/GEAR. We've got more information about the program. We've got sample student schedules, so you can see how a student does divide up their undergraduate and graduate work in that time frame, as well as testaments from GEAR students. If you have questions about GEAR, again, I'm the project manager, so you can feel free to reach out to me at zachary.watts@rochester.edu. Again, taking a screenshot of this slide is fine, but also in the chat box, I'll be putting my email address at the very end of our presentation. So I'll take a step back from GEAR and ultimately take a step back from Alvin's presentation on engineering and talk to you a little bit more about the application process as a whole from our point of view in the admissions office. We do utilize holistic review, and we utilize holistic review in basically 2 different ways. So the first of which is, what are we looking at in your application? Well, we are going to look holistically at the various items that you see on this slide, and I'll touch on those in just a moment, but we're going to take into full consideration your essays, your transcript, including GPA and rigor and the types of class opportunities you took advantage of, letters of recommendation, as well as various other optional items that I'll discuss momentarily. In addition to holistically reviewing your application that way, we will holistically review your application in terms of the number of eyes that will see your application. Each one of you, whether you are a domestic student or an international student, has a regional counselor that is the territory manager for your area. For example, I am the territory manager for Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, both of the Dakotas, Idaho, and Montana. If you're applying from any of those states, I would be the first person to read your application. I'm reading it within the context of your school and your area and the different opportunities you've had, but you'll also have a second set of eyes on your application. A second reader who's going to take a step back and review your application a little bit more broadly in terms of how much of a fit you are for the University of Rochester. If for some reason those 2 readers disagree, you could actually have a third set of eyes on your application as well when your application goes to committee to be discussed even further. So those are examples of holistic review at Rochester, really trying to make sure that we get the full picture of the student and that the student is given full opportunity, ample opportunity to be reviewed and have their materials reviewed. Now, I mentioned some of the requirements earlier, but there are some optional items when you apply to Rochester, one of which is the interview. The interview is not required, but because it's not required, you can see why it would demonstrate interest if you sign up for one. You can sign up on our virtual events page, which I'll show you the link in just a minute. You can sign up there, or you can go to the regional page and sign up with your counselor. All of us are putting on events, interview events in our various states, territories, and countries. In addition, there are other optional items to demonstrate interest, such as this event today, such as workshops and other info sessions that we put on. If you are an international student joining us today, we do have a language requirement. You can find more of that on our admissions page under international students. Newly this year, we started accepting both Duolingo and TOEFL at home edition. So if the pandemic is keeping you from a scheduled test, you still have opportunities. Lastly, I'll touch on the financial side of applying. At Rochester, we have merit-based scholarships that look at you as a whole person and not just your grades. We have scholarships for community service, leadership, music, and a variety of other items. We will review your application for those scholarships. There is no separate application if you want to be considered. So my job, for example, is not only to look at you for potential admission, but also to see if any of your accomplishments match up with our scholarships. Lastly, if you have need, you can fill out the FAFSA, or for some of you, the CSS profile, along with your application. And then the financial aid office is committed to meeting 100% of your demonstrated need. They'll do so through grants, through the scholarships that I just mentioned, through a pretty robust work study program, and then also through loans. Here are some deadlines. So if you are currently a senior and you're applying this fall, we offer early decision 1, early decision 2, and regular decision. Early decision is binding. I highly encourage you, please do not apply to multiple schools early decision, and please save early decision for your top choice. There are certainly perks that come along with early decision, such as an earlier notification date, but it really does not look good if you apply multiple places, because you are signing an agreement that says, if I'm admitted early decision, I will withdraw my other applications. We have an ED1 date of November 1st. We'll notify you about 5 weeks later in early December. We have an ED2 date of January 5th. We'll notify you about 5 weeks later in early February. And then we have a regular decision deadline of January 5th. Notification will come in the early spring. The other deadline that's on this slide that's off to the right is the priority scholarship deadline. So if scholarships are important to you in your college search, we have a deadline of December 1st. If you meet a December 1st deadline, you'll be taken into higher consideration when it comes to merit-based scholarships. If any of you are joining us today as transfer students, the deadline is tomorrow for our spring 2021 students. We notify students rolling admissions, so within 3-4 weeks after you have all of your materials in, you will be notified. And if you're looking to start next fall, 2021, as a transfer student, March 15th will be our deadline in the spring, and it'll be the same thing. It'll be a rolling admissions deadline. I believe the last thing that we have for you is some contact information. So if you have questions, again, here is the link. I would suggest taking a picture or a screenshot. You can sign up for any of our virtual events, info sessions, workshops, again, regional events where you can sign up for an interview. You can sign up for all of that at the virtual events page. You can find out who your counselor is and reach out to them directly. And then you also have various social media pages that are on this slide as well if you want to reach out and follow us. You have the Hajim School's email. I had my email earlier, but I quickly want to type that into the chat box as well. So if you have any questions that I can help with from the admissions point of view, if I can get you in contact with any resources or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to my email. And I'll leave that up here for the duration of our time together so that you can make sure to copy that down. I do think we have some questions still sitting out there to be answered. So I think in the last 10 minutes that we have together, we can go ahead and tackle these Q&A. Please keep questions coming in the Q&A if you have more, but we'll go ahead and transition from the presentation to the question and answer.
Yeah, Zach, I think I'll give you a little bit of a reprieve and take this first question that says, can your students choose one major for an undergraduate degree and then a different engineering major for the master's degree? The answer is yes. And one of the reasons for that is we actually do offer some master's programs that are not available at the undergraduate level. So one of the examples of that is the Technical Entrepreneurship and Management program, which is a major that is, or it's a program that is, it's a master's program that is offered jointly by the Hajim School of Engineering and Applied Sciences and the Simon Business School. So students who are enrolled in that program are actually taking courses both, on that technical side of the house as well as from the business side of the house, to kind of get an understanding of some of the business that might be related to launching a new technical product. So that's a program that, because it's not available to students in an undergraduate program, it's available for students at the graduate level. We also might find that students are interested in, their interests might shift a little bit. One of the things that I can potentially think about is, earlier on I said that, sometimes students in biomedical engineering might have an interest in the eye and how the eye works. And so maybe they end up going for a master's program in optics that really complements the work that they did in biomedical engineering. So those are just, some examples of some ways that students are able to, use their masters to kind of complement or kind of add on to some of the work that they did during undergrad. Zach, there were some questions about the number of students who end up applying to the program and then end up being accepted.
Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of combine the two questions that are in the Q&A right now. One student, as Alvin just mentioned, is kind of talking about how many apply and how many accepted. And then the second student rephrased that a little bit and asked about the acceptance rate. So those can kind of go hand in hand. So we are looking to continue to increase our reputation when it comes to gear and continue to seek more applications from qualified candidates. This past year, so the students who just arrived this fall, when we went through that cycle last year, we saw somewhere around 350 or so, almost 400 applications into the gear program. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we broke that down a little bit to notifying finalists and non-finalists. I think we ended up inviting close to 45 or so students to our finalist program in February of earlier this year. And then we ended up admitting right around 25, I think it ended up being 28 students into the program through gear. So I don't have my calculator with me to divide that number by the total applications we received to give the actual acceptance rate. But it will vary year to year. Like I said, we're out doing these virtual visits in the admissions office and really plugging away with gear, and we want qualified students to apply. So hopefully we can continue to see the application numbers go up. But I work pretty well hand in hand with Alvin and some of his colleagues. Anna, who's joining us in the background answering some questions, she is kind of my go-to counterpart in Hajim to work on gear with. So we have certain goals that we want to reach, and we want to increase, connectivity and interest in the program. And so I definitely think that the numbers can vary, but those are some numbers that we saw in last year's cycle.
Great.
Any other questions, guys? I know we do have a couple minutes left here. I want to make sure that if you need anything else from us, ultimately these experiences are not just about us lecturing at you and giving you presentations, but more so to make sure that what you specifically are looking for, that you get. So we do have a few minutes left. We're more than happy to stay here and answer some questions. Please type them in the Q&A if you have questions. So I do see here, Alvin, this student asked, I noticed on your website that AP credit doesn't apply to clusters. In general, how many APs could be transferred for the engineering school?
Yeah, so we, that's right, that we don't apply AP credit to clusters, but they can be used towards the major. There's not, at this point, there's not a limit to the number of, credits that students can transfer in. So, there might be a student who ends up, bypassing 2 semesters of calculus, 2 semesters of chemistry, 2 semesters of physics, maybe. And then maybe, an elective arts or humanities course on top of that. So I don't know what all of that is altogether, but we do find students that are kind of in that situation. And one of the things I was actually reflecting on earlier is I did say that you know, there's no expectation that students will have taken engineering courses or AP or that sort of thing when they get here. But if you have taken those courses already and you come to the university, we will absolutely place you, you know, at a course that meets your need and your ability. And that goes not only for, you know, math and computer science, but also languages as well. So like if you've taken a whole bunch of AP courses, or if you've taken, you know, AP language, or you're a native speaker, we can really push you towards taking some of the intermediate advanced level courses or some of the cultural courses and some related to some of the languages. So I wouldn't say there's a hard and fast limit. It will just end up depending on the program that you're taking.
Great. A couple more questions here. I think I can handle both of these. First question asks, are there opportunities for students to pursue music or academic interests without investing in classes, like bands or ensembles to join? We have a really robust group of student organizations and clubs on campus. I think 300 plus of those student organizations that exist. So certainly if you like take music, for example, if you don't want to take a music major or a music minor, but you do want to be involved with music somehow, we have a variety of a cappella groups on campus if you're a singer. We do have ensembles, marching band. So there are various opportunities in club form for students to take advantage of if they don't want to go to the level of a minor or a major or even a cluster for that matter. The other question, is there a benefit to doing a region-specific virtual interview compared to just the regular virtual interview? So if you're referring to what I mentioned earlier about going to the virtual events page and signing up, I would say the benefit to doing a region-specific virtual interview is that you're going to interview with the person who's going to read your application. So for example, if you're from Ohio and you interview with me particularly, I'm the one reading your application. So it's going to be very helpful. I'm not going to need to translate notes from my colleague or anything like that. I'm going to be able to take notes, and when I go to read an application, I already understand how I take notes and things like that. So that's certainly one of the benefits to doing so. However, our region-specific interview times are a little bit more specific and limited versus our regular virtual admissions interviews, which are offered all the time. So if, for example, I'll stick with Ohio. If you're from Ohio, but I offer 3 different days in October that don't work for you, but you have a great day that does work for you, then go sign up for a regular virtual admissions interview. As long as you do one, you're demonstrating interest. I just think if you're able to fit it into your schedule, doing one with your specific counselor does provide that added benefit of they're the person who will read your application. So I think on that note, it doesn't look like we have any other questions, and we are running down here to the end. So I want to thank Alvin and Anna for joining me this evening. It was a pleasure to kind of discuss with you guys about various opportunities that engineering students have at Rochester. Again, please, if you look at this slide, please go sign up for virtual events if you're interested. Please stay in touch with us if you're interested. And in the chat box, I put my email address. If you have any questions about engineering or Rochester in general, please reach out to me. And I'm more than happy to answer those questions or point you in the direction of someone who can. I hope everyone is staying healthy and safe, and you stay in touch if you need us. But again, Alvin, Anna, thank you, and hope everyone has a great night.
Thanks, everyone.